This is the USC Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, Tim Prangley of LAFB and Gabe Greenlee of the Trojan Blade.
Welcome back, whether it's your first listen or you've been supporting our channels for a while. We really appreciate you all being here. I'm Tim and he's Gabe, and this is the USC Football Podcast.
Hey, Tim. I know we've been talking for 2 straight hours, but for the sake of the listeners out there, how are you doing?
It's game week, and I couldn't be better. The wait is over, and finally, we're talking real football.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about this offseason, but it just felt like an eternity. It wasn't the newsiest offseason. It wasn't like 2022 or 2023 where the transfer portal was going berserk. We were getting all these new crazy players, but yeah, very grateful that the wait's over.
A lot of optimism has been brewing and coming into the program, and whether it's recruiting, just turning around, USC dominating, the thoughts of having Danton Lynn's defense out there in year 2. There's just a lot of optimism to see what Jaden Maiava could do with a full offseason under his belt and Lincoln Riley's tutelage. Yeah, I really think that the tutelage of Riley and the coupling that with the big expectations for how great this defense is going to be has made the wait that much longer, but it's finally here.
Yeah, completely agree. And also, shameless plug, over on my Trojan Blade YouTube channel, I did an in-depth breakdown of Jaden Maiava using advanced analytics. So if that's something that interests you, please go check that out.
Yeah, Gabe, I really enjoyed the video. Did a great job of breaking down the raw numbers, showing the season that Maiava had last year and kind of pulls the emotion out of it. Just lets everyone just take a look at the data and make their own decisions. You did a great job. Thanks,
Tim. I know you don't actually watch any of my videos, but I appreciate you saying that anyway. But before we actually get into the podcast, we did get another 5-star review. And guys, if you do want to have something read on the show, a comment or a question, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review. We will read anything you guys write within reason. So keep it classy. Don't go crazy. But we did get one 5-star review this week from Swags55. And he says, I would love you to list some reasons outside of not believing in Dante Moore why you think USC will beat Oregon and Autzen. I believe Oregon is a ways ahead in top to bottom talent right now, especially when you look at USC's offensive line versus Oregon's defensive line. Thanks. Yeah, you guys hear the Ducks playing. Tim, you want to take this?
I think there are a lot of reasons why USC can go up to Autzen and win this game, just starting with the simple fact that Dillon Gabriel really did exceed the expectations coming in from Oklahoma last year. Replacing him with a talented quarterback in Dante Moore is promising, but not proven. So there's questions literally at quarterback just to start the whole thing off. I do think that they have an amazing running back with Mekhi Hughes. I think he's the real deal. They just lose a lot. Gabriel on offense, they lose on offensive line. It's really hard to replace all conference tackle like Josh Connerly and Cornelius. They have bookend tackles you got to replace. They're replacing 4 starting offensive linemen. They're just left with their center. So there's issues on offensive line. I think that DJ Uyunglele is the real deal. Absolute stud from some school in Bellflower called St. John Bosco. I think he's going to be a handful, but they also have to replace guys, like Birch. And there's some holes there. Yes, they did poach Bear Alexander, and they did come and get Emmanuel Pregnon, and those are some helps, but again, too many questions in my mind for them just to be a surefire win. There are a lot of reasons why USC can win this game. Again, I don't predict them to go up to Autzen and win for the first time since 2011. USC's only been up to Autzen twice in the past 10 years. So there are a lot of questions. I think the improvements on USC's lines are going to help them, but let's face it, it's late in the season, and USC's offensive line, if offensive line stays healthy for USC, if this team gels, the offensive line does gel, I put USC's odds in this game as more than a puncher's chance.
Yeah, I would say so too. I don't understand the anointing of Dante Moore before he's even taken a real snap at Oregon. Last time we saw him, he was terrible. And yeah, a lot of people like to say, oh, he was at UCLA. He was playing for Chip Kelly. Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a ton of success there, so I don't want to hear that. To me, he's extremely overhyped. Yeah, he's talented, but this isn't Bo Nix or Dillon Gabriel. You're not getting a super experienced guy. It's actually the complete opposite of that. He has 1 year of playing, and he had a ton of bad habits that 1 year at UCLA. So let's just wait and see before we go anointing him as the second coming.
They lost a lot of guys to the NFL. You know, they lose Tez Johnson. Evan Stewart's hurt. So there's a lot of question marks, even in the receiver rooms. The offense that was just really purring last year, I'm not saying they're not just going to pick up again and take off. That very well could happen. Will Stein's a great offensive coordinator, but just to assume they're going to roll out an offense like they've had last year, given that most of them are gone, I think that the Duck fans might be a little bit premature with their prediction to win the game.
All right, so that's enough Oregon talk for one podcast. I'm starting to feel nauseous. So, guys, you can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, and Apple Podcast. Heading over to the socials, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at The Trojan Blade, and Tim is at Tim_Prangley. And over on YouTube, you can find Tim over at USC LAFB. Every single Wednesday, he's going to be live for the Conquest Call-In Show at LAFB, the only true call-in show in the USC community. And they're going to have a ton of content for you during the course of the season. Ryan and the guys do a fantastic job. And then for me, over at the Trojan Blade, going to be uploading a ton. Game previews, game reviews, all sorts of stuff. So head over there and subscribe. Yeah, and for today's show, it was a very newsy day out of USC. So we're going to go into all the updates heading into that first game. We're actually going to preview our opponent in Missouri State. We're going to do a fun new segment called What's More Likely. It is as simple as it sounds. And then we're going to finish with a Big Ten pick'em that we're going to run throughout the entire year. We're not sure what the punishment's going to be for the loser yet, but it is going to be something terrible. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. But Tim, do you want to take us into the news?
Yeah, let's do it. It's game week. And so a lot of the questions that we had regarding injuries, regarding starting lineups, are starting to be filled in. For instance, a lot of the beat writers were talking about the fact that Caden Chittenden had been noticeably absent. The kicker that's been brought over to replace Michael Lance from UNLV was not in the scrimmage that we watched. Haven't seen him at practice, and it turns out that he's banged up, Gabe.
Yeah, so that is unfortunate. I was looking forward to seeing him kick. The dude has a very big leg, had a monster year at UNLV. And there's certainly no slouch filling in for him with Ryan Sayeri. And obviously, in this game, it's not going to be a big miss. It's not a position where you really need to develop chemistry or anything like that. So just put him in bubble wrap, get him healthy. We're going to need him as we go down the stretch.
In other news, we also had Jakeem Stewart. Thanos was spotted in a walking boot with an injury, but Lincoln Riley was able to shed some light on the severity of that injury.
Yeah, this is another situation of just put him in bubble wrap. I know he's a true freshman and everybody wants to see him. I'm sure he's dying to play, but he's one of those guys I'm so sure on. He's so physically ready. I don't need to see him against Missouri State, if we're being completely honest. Put him in bubble wrap. We'll see you against Michigan State. Let him rest for a few more weeks, heal up properly. That's how I view it anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather see these guys rested up. I know there's a fine line between resting and getting them totally healthy and getting them that early season game experience that they would receive against these ramp up games leading up to the Big Ten schedule and into some of the earlier games in the Big Ten that we're going to see. But I don't want to see an injury like this turn into a small injury that might keep them out a couple of games, re-injury or aggravating it and turning into a longer injury through the season.
Exactly, especially with a foot or an ankle, because he is in a walking boot. You have to be so careful with that. You do not want it to linger throughout the entire year. He's going to be a very important piece. Yeah, just let him heal up.
Now, Lincoln Riley did say that it was not a serious injury. It could be a game time decision, but I'm with you. I would doubt we're probably going to see him in this game at all.
Yeah.
And then provide some clarity on the topic that we've been talking about really in the first two podcasts we talked about, just completely putting that stamp on what we called a long time ago. You're going to have Elijah Page at left tackle, at left guard, most likely Tobias Raymond. In the middle is going to be, they said both centers, but it looks like Killian O'Connor is going to get the start. And then at right guard, Alani Noah. And finally at right tackle, Justin Tanu.
Yeah, it's exactly what we talked about. I'm still very surprised on the John Ray Reed, Killian O'Connor thing. But Killian has all the smarts. He's been in the system for a long time, knows it like the back of his hand. Does that play a huge role in this? I absolutely think it does. But yeah, the main thing for me was getting Tobias and Justin on the field at the same time. That has been accomplished with this, so I am very happy.
Yeah, it's good to see some decisiveness. There's none of this mixing and matching like we've seen in previous years. It looks like they have their 5 with, I think we're both kind of agreeing that the Killian O'Connor / Jean-Ray Reed situation is going to be evolving throughout the season.
Yeah, and Killian is going to get those first reps, but I just hope that they figure it out really, really soon. As you know, Tim, and anyone who's listened to this podcast, I am massively against rotating offensive linemen. Contrary to popular belief, I know a lot of people know it with running backs and quarterbacks, but offensive line is a rhythm position. And there's no preseason. There's no joint practices. Reps are so limited, so valuable. You build chemistry every single time you're out there on the field. And when you're rotating and mixing and matching and doing all this stuff, you're losing valuable time. So I hope that this battle does not linger too long, if it even is a battle. He said that they're going to play both centers, but they seem to be really high on Killian O'Connor. I don't think it's posturing. I don't think it's anything like that. But yeah, I do hope that this gets resolved sooner rather than later.
And let's face it, we've been talking about the beginning of the season with Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, and probably even Michigan State is going to provide a lot of opportunities for these guys to, the starters at least, to get out there, get their reps. And then you have to make that decision. How long do you keep them out there to gel? You know, all new guys playing next to each other, some guys playing fairly new positions. So the question mark is going to be for the staff. How much time do you want to put them out there? And then how much, I guess it comes to the backups. How much faith do you have in the backups? If you're going to roll these guys out, keep them out there risking, possible injury. We had a lot of injury luck last year, but I do think that these guys are going to see significant minutes because I say it ramps up, but then it gets really tough with road games at Illinois, back here for Michigan, and then Notre Dame. These guys need to be tested. They need to work as a unit, like you said, get that rhythm, get used to working each other, knowing those handoffs, that the offensive line has to do, knowing what their job is. And the only way they do that is going to be with lots of reps.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting point. When those backups do come in, that's probably going to be when Hassan Longstreet comes into the game. And if you hear guys like Colin Cowherd talk, he specifically said on Joel Klatt's show, I think 2 or 3 days ago, he said that he knows that USC wants to get a really good look and possibly play Hassan Longstreet this year. That's what he said. I know it's Colin Cowherd. He says a lot of outlandish shit sometimes, but the guy doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to USC. So I don't think Lincoln's just going to want Longstreet to come in and hand the ball off 20 times. I think they're going to want to get a real look at him running the offense. So how are guys like Hayden Treater going to perform? Micah Banuelos? Is a guy like Elijah Vicona going to get into the game? The second string offensive line is still auditioning for a role later in the year if injuries happen. God forbid they don't. But this is going to be a very important game for the backups as well.
Well, that brings us to the main event and what we're here for in game week. And that's game 1 against the Missouri State Bears. USC is going to come to this game heavily favored. It's obviously their first meeting against the Bears. Historically, they make the jump from FCS to FBS. USC has won its last 8 straight openers, and they are 3-5 against the spread, according to Phil Steele. Missouri State opened the season last year 8-2 with losses to Montana by 5 and 8-point loss to Ball State. But then they went 6-0 in conference before dropping their final 2 games. Missouri State is led by head coach Ryan Beard in his 3rd season. And I know, Gabe, that you're a big fan.
Yeah, I actually am. So he's a defensive guy. He was the DC under Bobby Petrino there at Missouri State. So grand scheme at Missouri State, they were dead in the water for a long time. They were a middling and sometimes really bad FCS school. They're not a Montana. They're not a North Dakota State or anything like that. And then Bobby Petrino gets there with Ryan Beard as his DC, and they flip it in a hurry. They turn into one of the premier programs in all of FCS. And yeah, when Bobby Petrino left, he became the head coach at Missouri State. Coach Beard is 37 years old, so he's still a young guy. And again, like I mentioned, he is a defensive guy. And taking a look at the defense, just scheme-wise, this is going to be a base 4-3. But because of how much 11 personnel we're going to be playing, this is going to be primarily a 4-2-5 from the Bears. And they're replacing a lot in their secondary. They had a tragic death, actually. One of their starters and overall best players, Todrick McGee, actually died over the offseason. Very, very sad story. He was a big part of that team. He was beloved by his teammates and coaches. Obviously, massive condolences to the program and his family. But from a football standpoint, they're just replacing a ton in this secondary and going up against our wide receivers, Jaden Mayava's arm talent. It's going to be a long day at the office for him.
Yeah, and they're returning 5 or 6 starters, depending on which publication you look at from 2024. The thing is that squad gave up 30 points per game and nearly 400 yards per game against FCS offenses. And
yeah,
like
they were
you
really
just
bad
said,
they were really bad on the ground, like really bad, giving up rush yards.
and now they're going to be going up against, I believe, this very improved offensive line, and they ran the ball pretty heavy. USC ran the ball really heavy last year against Utah State. They ran the ball 37 times for 250 yards. I assume that's probably be very similar to that in this game.
I would agree with that. And this isn't really a game I would expect to see a lot of QB run game unless Hassan Longstreet comes in later in the day. But this is probably just to get in, get your work in, keep Jay Mayava healthy and move on. So I wouldn't expect to see him running a lot. And I know a lot of people want to see him start to run more. So I wouldn't hit the panic button if that doesn't happen in this game. Probably just want to keep him healthy, keep him safe heading into our bigger games down the road.
Most likely he'll stay upright. They also lost their top 3 tacklers from 2024 and their top 2 sack leaders.
Yeah, this defense did a really good job last year of creating havoc plays, a lot of sacks, fumbles, turnovers, that kind of thing. But they had a massive glaring issue in the interior of their defensive line. That was their number one priority this offseason in the transfer portal, and flat out, they didn't address it. They didn't bring in the kind of guys they wanted to. That's just become a premium spot in college football, in football in general. They're very hard to find. As we know, as USC fans, they are at a premium, very expensive. So yeah, the middle of that Missouri State defense was suspect last year. It's going to be suspect again. What I will say, it's the first game of the year, so you can't really panic about anything unless you lose or something like that. But if for some reason we can't run the ball on this team, I am going to be a little concerned. That's all I'll say.
So moving on to the offense, the Bears are led by Nick Petrino, the offense coordinator, the son of Bobby Petrino from Arkansas. He was at Louisville with his dad when Lamar Jackson had all of success. The quarterback they have is Jacob Clark, third year starting, 6'5", 220 pounds. Notable offers from Iowa, Purdue, and Minnesota from the Big Ten, California, and Washington State from the Pac-12. But he started out at Minnesota, eventually making his way to Missouri State.
Yeah, this is a player that the NFL community likes a lot. Projected 6th or 7th round pick as of right now. One thing you notice about him when you watch him play, he's very mature. He has very good pocket presence. He stands very tall in the pocket. He's willing to take a shot to get the ball downfield. One thing our linebackers are going to have to be aware of, this guy can absolutely pull the ball and pick up a first down with his legs. He's not going to outrun any of our defenders or anything. He's absolutely a good enough athlete to get you a few first downs a game. He's very aggressive with the football. He's very confident in his arm. He thinks he can fit it into any window. And that's one thing that really showed up in the few games that I watched from them last year. He's not a check down artist. This guy, much like Jade Mayava, is going to take his shots, going to be very aggressive. And overall, scheme-wise, this is actually going to be a pretty good test for us later in the year with the Big Ten teams we play, because they're under center a lot. They're going to boot right. They're going to boot left. This is a heavy play action offense, and they're going to attack the middle of the field with their tight ends. They throw to the tight ends a ton, and they also love to attack the inside seams. Much like Miller Moss last year early in USC season, they throw that route a ton, so be on the lookout for that. There's not a ton of speed on the outside. James Blackstrain and Jamari Robinson are going to be their top 2 wideouts. But they also have a guy named Dash Luke that Coach Beard said is going to have a huge role this year. So be on the lookout for him. Swings, screens, and reverses, that kind of thing for him. But yeah, it's a very West Coast style offense. And Jacob Clark is a perfect fit for it. Do they have the horses to put 30 or 40 on us? I don't think so at all. Not even close. The offensive line is by far the biggest question mark. I think our defensive front is going to have a monster game. Easily 5+ sacks, countless more pressures. Would like to see a lot of havoc plays as well. Maybe get some turnovers, put this game out of reach early. But yeah, I really like the matchup for our defense against their offense.
Yeah, I do too. I think the size inside Keyshawn Silver, Carlin Jones, Kobe Pepe should be able to push this pocket. And with the injury, Jakeem Stewart, I know that Devin Tompkins is going to be starting. But look for the youngster. Look for a freshman, Floyd Boucard, to get his feet wet in this game. I think that he might surprise a lot of Trojan fans from what I saw from him in the spring. If they are able to collapse, get in that pocket, cause trouble, look for Cameron Fountain, Anthony Lucas, and Braylon Shelby really to have a hell of a game getting after the quarterback. Although the offensive line, Missouri State does return all 5 starters on that unit that have 67 starts. So the problem is they gave up 40 sacks to FCS schools. So I'm wondering if this defensive line game is what we think it's going to be. How many sacks do you think we get in this game?
A lot. I mean, honestly, Jacob Clark, as much as he can scramble, he's not going to be like Jade Mayavo or like a guy like Caleb Williams where he can just evade pressure in the pocket and make all these crazy plays. Now, he's not a sitting duck either, but I do think we're going to get a lot of sacks in this game, a lot of pressures, maybe a few forced fumbles. That would be nice as well. But yeah, Jacob Clark is not going to have a good day at the office.
All in all, it looks like it's going to be a really long afternoon for the Missouri State Bears. Phil Steele has them predicted to finish second to last, 10th place in the Conference USA standings, just one spot ahead of Kennesaw State. It's a rough position to put a team in coming straight from FCS and playing schools like USC. Therefore, I think that USC might also see some of their backups early as this game gets out of hand.
Yeah, and looking at the betting side of things, on the year, Missouri State is at a 4.5 win total. Probably going to take the under on that. And for the sake of this game, and this will count towards the Big Ten pick'em that me and Tim are doing, but the line right now is USC minus 35.5. So Tim, where are you on that line?
I'm going to take SC and lay the points.
Yeah, agreed. Going to do the same thing. Score prediction time for me, I'm at USC 52, Missouri State 10.
And I'm going to take USC 56, Missouri State 6. If I think that USC is going to hold opponents to under 20 points a game, the Bears are not scoring more than 6 points.
You would like to think so. Maybe me giving them 10 is a little bit too generous, but yeah, either way, I think it's going to be an ass beating.
So let's look at some other Big Ten scores. We know USC's kicking off in week 1 against Missouri State. Who do you want to get first?
Well, let's just go in chronological order. Let's start with Thursday. Ohio is going to be at Rutgers. The current line is Rutgers minus 15. So I actually lived in the state of Ohio for a long time. Major amount of fondness for the Ohio football program. So with that in mind, I'm going to pick Ohio to cover this.
Oh, wow. 15 points, a lot of points to give up for a Callie McManus-led offense. So no, sorry. I think I'm going to stay with Ohio in this one as well, and I'll join you. I'll take the Ohio Bobcats and the points.
Tim Prangley, known softy for the Midwest.
That's why I love Michigan, Ohio State so much. I can't get enough of being in the shoe.
With that in mind, next up, let's talk about Buffalo and Minnesota. Minnesota is currently a 17.5 point favorite over the Bulls.
This game at home at Huntington Bank Stadium, I'm going to row the boat and I'm going to lay the points for Minnesota.
Yeah, I'll sadly do the same thing. PJ Fleck kind of annoys me. Their fans are kind of horrible, but yeah, I'll go with Minnesota on this one.
Well, I built that in. A free touchdown by the Big Ten refs if they're doing the game.
Smart. And if there's a sneak and the quarterback clearly fumbles, just give it to him anyway.
Exactly my thinking.
Now, next, I am actually pretty excited to watch this game. Patrick Mahomes Jr. and the Nebraska Cornhuskers head to Arrowhead Stadium to play the Cincinnati Bearcats. The line is currently Nebraska minus 6.5.
I'm amazed that line's that low.
I mean, I'm not the biggest believer in Raiola or Nebraska, so I'm not. But I've seen that a lot of people are high on them for this year. Josh Pate has them going like 10-2, which I think is crazy. But
the total's at 54 in that line, so they're saying that Cincinnati has to score a lot of points on the defense. I'm gonna take Nebraska, but barely.
I'm actually gonna take Cincinnati to win this one outright.
Ooh, bold.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm not really sold, as you know, on the Big 12 all around. Especially after what Nebraska did to Colorado last year. I know Satterfield's going to put up a lot of points. That's why you're seeing that 45.5 point total. But I still have Nebraska eking this one out the end.
Yeah, it's just a Dylan Raiola thing for me. Not a believer in him. Not really a believer in Matt Rule, although it is year 3, like you've brought up on a few podcasts. So maybe that'll be the big deal here. Maybe this team is ready to go, but I'll believe it when I see it. All right, and next up, and we're still on Thursday night, we have Miami of Ohio traveling to Wisconsin. The line is currently Wisconsin minus 17.5. I don't know what the hell Wisconsin is doing. This program is completely off the rails. Their schedule this year is crazy difficult. Luke Fickell's just been kind of an out-and-out disaster there. So I'm actually going to take Miami to cover here. That total is 39.5, so this is going to be a bit more low scoring. But yeah, I do have Miami of Ohio covering here.
Yeah, I don't like that big point spread early in the season. I'm with you. Wisconsin, the fickle struggles have been well documented. I'm going to also take Wisconsin to win, but Miami of Ohio to cover.
You know who Wisconsin's new quarterback is? It's Billy Edwards from Maryland, the guy that unfortunately beat us last year. He had one good game and it was against us. So not rooting for them in that sense either. But next up, moving to Friday, we have Western Michigan at Michigan State. Sparty is a 20.5 point favorite, Tim.
20.5 points is a lot of points to be giving up in this game off of the struggling Michigan State team last year. But I really do think that Jonathan Smith's the real deal. SC fans, we saw him up at Oregon State, and I do think he's going to turn this thing around. Jonathan Smith is great with quarterbacks, and we saw that Aiden Childs has a big arm. He's got the legs to move. He's just got to cut down on the interceptions. So that's what gives me pause on that 20.5. But I do think that Aiden Childs takes care of the ball, and Sparty cruises, sending a message to the rest of the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's a game on our schedule that I'm not really overlooking anymore the more I dive into Michigan State and what this year's team is going to be. So I do have them covering this as well pretty comfortably. Now, next up, an absolutely dreadful game as Western Illinois travels to Illinois. The line here is 45.5. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about Western Illinois at all. So I'm just going to take Illinois to cover here.
I'm with you. I know nothing about Western Illinois. I do know Illinois is going to have a solid defense. The 45.5 points is a big spread, but I'm going to go ahead and give that to Western Illinois. Illinois covers.
All right, now moving to Saturday, we already talked about our game. We both have USC covering that 35.5 point spread. Next up is the doozy of the entire weekend. Number 1, Texas on the road at number 3, Ohio State. Ohio State enters as a 2.5 point favorite, at least as of Tuesday night when we're recording this. So, Tim, Texas, Ohio State, what are your thoughts?
So Texas is losing Ewers, which is probably going to be an upgrade as they go to Arch Manning. And I'm really a believer in Sarkisian. I mean, we know his troubles here at USC, but I do like his play calling. I do like him as a coach. And then the flip side of that is it just seems like Ohio State really had a great season, but then lost everybody. I think it's understated how important Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles were to the Buckeyes. You're not just going to easily replace both of those losses at coordinator. I think replacing Jim Knowles with Matt Patricia is going to be. I just don't see it as an equal trade. I know that they're trying to run the Buckeye defense that Jim Knowles was running there, but again, bringing up Hartline, the wide receiver coach, to be the new OC, even though you know that he's probably not going to be calling all of the plays. I think that Chip Kelly is just a master at preparing for games in game week, and then also a game day caller. I think that's going to be a huge drop off. Losing Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins at running back. Will Howard came on strong, losing almost their entire defense, studs the guys to the NFL. I just think that it's just too much of a loss, and I do think that Texas will win this one outright.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you. Chip Kelly is one of the best run game play callers of all time, plain and simple. You lose Knowles, who's an elite defensive coordinator. I mean, and you're breaking all of that in week 1 against Sark and Texas. I mean, we'll see how Julian Sayin plays for Ohio State, but Arch Manning actually has in-game experience. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go with Texas to win this one outright as well. Now, next up, let's talk about Florida Atlantic at Maryland. Maryland is currently a 14.5 point favorite in this game. So Florida Atlantic is pretty talented. The talent gap in college football is closing more and more each year, it seems, especially with these tweener teams like Maryland. And I actually have a sneaky suspicion that Florida Atlantic is going to play this close, and I have them covering. I don't have them winning, but I do think it's going to be pretty close.
Gabe, one does not simply walk into College Park, Maryland, and come out with a victory.
Clearly.
So for that reason and that reason only, I'm going to take Maryland and the points.
I still can't believe that we lost that game, Tim. But anyway, next up, Ball State at Purdue is an in-state battle, a fierce rivalry between the Cardinals and the Boilermakers. And Purdue is currently a 17.5 point favorite.
Yeah, I really do like the hire of Barry Odom. And at Big Ten Media Days, he talked about how it's going to turn a different attitude around there at Purdue. And I think he will. I think he will get them on track. Unfortunately, I also watched Purdue play last year. And 17 and a half points, even at home to Ball State. I'm not believing in any of it. I've got to see what they could do. And quite frankly, I don't think they get it done in game one, in year one of Barry Odom. So I'm going to take Ball State in the points.
Well, you're a better man than me, Tim, because I did not watch any of Purdue last year, gladly. But having said that, I also like Barry Odom. Our old friend Michael Jackson III is there, former USC wideout. So with that in mind, I'm going to go with Purdue to cover the 17 and a half. Big Ten pride, baby.
And that 17 and a half is going to be Josh Henson helping him out, the new OC over at Purdue.
I'm not going to lie. I totally forgot about that. Anyways, moving on from that, we have Northwestern on the road in New Orleans against Tulane. Our old friends, the Green Wave. Let's just not talk about that. Tulane is currently a 4.5 point favorite. So Tulane lost their star quarterback, Darian Mensah, to Duke. That kid's a superstar. I'm actually a big fan of what Northwestern is doing in this post-Pat Fitzgerald era. So I'm going to pick them to win outright. I really like the addition of Preston Stone from SMU. Very talented quarterback. And don't know how Tulane is going to replace all the talent that they lost this offseason.
Look, it was amazing what Tulane did to USC in the Cotton Bowl in 2023. Everything had to break right. But big part of that and the battle in that team was Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz is no longer there. They have lost a lot. So I'm going to take Northwestern to win this game as well.
Okay. Next up, we have the Old Dominion Monarchs up against the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana is a 24-point favorite. I'm going to take Indiana to cover here. I don't know a damn about Old Dominion, and I'm a big fan of Fernando Mendoza, so I'm going to roll with the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I think Kurt Signetti and Mendoza are going to be to pick the score on this one. I think they'll have an easy time getting those 24 points. So I will take Indiana and give Old Dominion the 24.
Next up, we have Nevada on the road at Penn State. Penn State is a 44-point favorite.
So this is Penn State's year. They're heavily invested into this year. They have a stacked roster. And one thing I do know about the Nevada Wolfpack is they do not have a stacked roster. This one, even though it's 44 points, I think that Penn State is going to have an easy time of this one. Penn State wins this one easily and covers.
Now, nothing you said there is wrong. Everything you said is correct, and I tend to agree with it. However, Penn State did have a home game against Bowling Green last year where it was very sleepy. Took them a while to get going. They were actually, I forget, it was close or tied at halftime, or maybe they were even down. It was a very weird game. So I do think that Penn State is going to win and win comfortably, but I do think it's going to be a little sleepy, and I don't think they're going to cover. That one's for sure going to bite me in the ass. But next up, we have Montana State at the Oregon Ducks. The line is currently 29.5 for Oregon. So Montana State is actually one of the elite programs in all of FCS. 29.5 is a big number, but I do think Oregon's going to cover and cover comfortably, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as much as I downplayed Oregon earlier, their line play, I think, is going to be the big difference. I don't think Montana State's going to have a chance in the trenches against the Ducks. And I think the Ducks are just going to run all over them. The Ducks do cover this game.
Next up, we have UAlbany on the road to Iowa. Iowa's a 38.5 point favorite. And Tim, my question for you is, what the hell is UAlbany?
Apparently a team that Iowa scraped up to get a win.
Yeah, that's I don't even know who that is. So that's pretty bad. I have Iowa covering, I guess.
Same in these games. If you don't know, like, you can't point on the map to even where you think that might be somewhere upstate. I don't know. I'm going to go with Iowa. And again, they're going to cover.
I mean, I'm looking at the logo on the screen. It's like a dog with really high ears. It looks gray, but the outline is in purple. I don't know. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. But anyways, next up, we have New Mexico, the Lobos, on the road at Michigan. Michigan is a 34.5 point favorite. New Mexico lost Bronco Mendenhall. They lost their quarterback to Utah. They lost everything. I'm going to hammer Michigan here.
Yeah, for the same reasons I've been giving, whether it be an Oregon team or even like a USC team. I just think that the trench play on Michigan's side, yes, they're replacing a lot of people, but you know that the Lobos will be outmatched at the line of scrimmage. So 34.5 points, I think Michigan covers as well.
Okay, next up, we have a former Pac-12 reunion as the Utah Utes head out to LA to take on the Baby Bruins. This is an 8 o'clock kick on Fox. I'm actually very intrigued to watch this game. But the line is currently Utah minus 5.5. Now, there's a lot of new in Utah. but they're very healthy. They have 2 NFL offensive tackles. So I think Utah has the advantage here in a lot of different areas, but the one wild card is going to be Nico. What's this offense going to look like? Are they going to run him into the ground like Tennessee did? There's a lot of unknown with the Bruins, but I'm going to go with consistency. I'm going to go with Kyle Whittingham, and I'm going to go with physicality. So I do have Utah covering the 5.5 probably pretty easily.
Well, Gabe, as painful as it is for me to say, I'm actually going to have to take the Bruins on this one. I really do actually like the hire of Tino Sinceri, who was Indiana's offensive coordinator. You pair that up with Nico at quarterback, and I think that they're going to put some points up. So I do think that the Bruins, they may not win, but they will definitely cover.
Yeah, there's no real good option in that one. I wish they could both lose, but moving on to the next game, we have Colorado State at Washington. Washington is a 22.5 point favorite. I'm extremely high on Washington this year. Damon Williams is a very explosive quarterback, very dynamic in both the throw and run game. So I do have Washington comfortably covering this one.
Yeah, year 2 of Jed Fish. I've really been a big fan of Jed Fish since was at Arizona. For that reason alone, I think he's one of the better coaches in the Big Ten. I think that they're able to win this game and cover.
Yeah, so that is the last one. There's not a ton of great games. Very excited about Utah, UCLA, obviously our game, and the Ohio State-Texas game. But yeah, not the best first week of games for the conference as a whole. But let's finish out the episode with what's more likely. So we're each going to give each other a scenario and ask what's more likely. Now, we both have not seen what the other has prepared for this segment, so we're just going to see how it goes. Tim, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. So I thought there's been a lot of people. It's what we do in the preseason, in the off season. We make these predictions on what's the record going to be, and a lot of people are taking that safe 9-3 sweet spot. 9-3 sounds really good, right? So I got me thinking, and we're trying to do the last episode. We did the ceiling and the floor. So I thought to myself, Gabe, and here's what I have for you: what's more likely? USC goes 12-0 or 6-6.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. All right. I mean, I know that the pitchforks are going to come out on this one. I'm going to be called the hater. USC Twitter's going to hate me, but I'm going to say 6-6.
We can just say it because USC sucked.
Oh, that sound clip is just perfect. But yeah, 12-0 is a big ask. It really is. I mean, we need injury luck. We went over it in the last episode. What has to happen for USC to go 12-0? And it's just a lot. I mean, to go 6-6 is a lot too, but we just saw USC go 6-6. That's a lot more feasible in my opinion. Like, you need Jaden Mayava to be elite. You need this offensive line to be elite. We need to run the ball a lot. We need injury luck. We need turnover luck. Eric Gentry cannot get hurt. Just so many things have to go right. I think 6-6 is unfortunately more likely.
Well, that's just it. Literally, everything really had to go wrong down the stretch of these games for USC to be in that position. It started in the preseason when they had Isaiah Rakes bail, lost a couple of defensive tackles when they needed to pick up a couple of defensive tackles.
Yeah.
Fading in games. That's been fixed. We needed in Minnesota for the booth officials to rewrite the Big Ten and NCAA rule book on having to actually see the ball when they're saying if it crossed the plane or not, and not just think it crossed the plane. We needed block field goal, at Maryland. There were a lot of things, some pretty bizarre, really bizarre pass interference and one defensive holding call in overtime that really looks strange in order for that pass, plus a couple of fourth down conversions. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I mean, 12-0 is not remotely likely. I don't see that scenario where USC goes through all these road games. I can see USC winning all the home games. I can. But the road game, especially the way we traveled and we had difficulty on the road last year, 12-0 is really difficult for me to see. But at the same time, I'm looking at this schedule. And when you start the season out, I mean, let's face it, it's going to be highly unlikely that USC is not 4-0 going to Champaign.
Yeah.
So that means SC would only win 2 games out of Illinois on the road, Michigan at home, Notre Dame on the road, at Nebraska, Northwestern at home, Iowa at home, at Oregon, and UCLA. If USC can't get 3 wins playing UCLA, Iowa, Northwestern, and then not one of the two of Michigan at home or at Nebraska. I don't know. I can't see a world where USC could only muster 2 wins down the stretch there. That's why the 6-6 just seems literally impossible. But you're right. I mean, if the injuries are there, it's probably the only way. There's catastrophic injuries on the offensive line.
If Lincoln loses the locker room, because I think there would have to be some mental problems with the team, like we saw at the tail end of 2023, for something like that to happen.
And so when I say that to myself, to go 12-0, because I picked 10-2. So it's not that big of a leap of faith to say if this team has, if Jada Mayava has made that next step, if this offensive line is as good as I think it can be, if the linebacking core is as dominant and EG can stay healthy the entire season, I know they're going to put up points. And I know this is year 2 of Danton Lynn. For me to see 6 losses, again, I don't know. It's the question between, can I see squeezing out 2 more wins in 2 very improbable places? That's the hardest thing. 2 places where both places USC has not won since 2011. Where historical stuff is fun and interesting to hear, it has nothing to do with this season. And so USC scrambling for 2, maybe 3, if you want to say it, they're a 9-3 team. I think that's much more likely than them just completely going 7-5, 6-6, and 6-6 3 straight years. I think the roster was a major issue last year. I think the majority of those issues have been answered. And the biggest thing was in the interior defensive line.
Okay, and the one I have for you, what's more likely? The tight end room accounts for more than 5 touchdowns, or Wayman Jordan has more than 1,300 yards. For reference, the tight ends did not catch a single touchdown last year, not one, which is pretty crazy. And on the year, Woody Marks had 1,100 yards. So with that in mind, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Wayman Jordan has the ability to be an every down back. I think he's going to be the bell cow of that backfield. I think his talent, if he can stay healthy, can easily get him to 1,300 yards. The question is going to be is how much we run the ball.
Exactly. The question isn't on him. It's on Lincoln.
Yeah. And of course the offensive line. But I do think if they're going to struggle, it'll probably be in pass pro, not running the ball.
Agreed.
Tight ends, I really do like Walker Lyons, and Lake McCree is battling, but it just seems like that body's gone through a lot, and I'm hoping he gets through the whole season healthy. But if it was a healthy Lake McCree and Joey Olson, hashtag Joey Olson All-American.
Hashtag Joey Olson is elite. Thank you very much.
If we have that kind of a situation, I know Walker Lyons coming off of last year, Lincoln Riley said the fact that, there were some issues with conditioning and him being ready for the season. I know he was a bit dinged up as well. So he had both McCree and and Lyons injured last year for periods of time. I think they're both healthy. I think you do probably get a touchdown out of that tight end room. But 6 going from 0 to 6, that's a tall order. And the running backs, if they stay healthy in this system, even though we've complained about how much they've run, very easily, Travis Dye, he stays healthy, give him probably 1,200 yards at least. Woody did it. Woody got over, he said 1,100.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to go with the 1,300 because for a lot of reasons. One, I think to build Jaden's confidence, I think these first 4 games, I think we're going to see a lot of running going on. I really do. And against some very bad defenses. So I think Wayman's going to get a lot of yardage early in the season. And yeah, I'll take Wayman and the 1,300.
Yeah, no, I am too, for the main reason of what we talked about. The running back room is stacked. The offensive line's a very good run blocking line, or at least it projects to be. And Jay Mayava does not like to throw into the middle of the field. That's what he showed us last year. That's what he did at UNLV. That's where those tight ends like to sit. The tight end production went off a cliff when he came in. He really likes to throw outside to those wideouts. So yeah, same for me. Going to go with Wayman Jordan and the 1,300 yards. But guys, that is going to do it for episode 3 of the USC Football Podcast. Had a lot of fun this episode. A lot of news is coming fast and furious. So make sure you guys are subscribing to the YouTube channel. That link is in the show notes. Make sure you're following us on your podcast platform of choice. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. Make sure you're leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and your review will be read. On Instagram and Twitter, you can find me at The Trojan Blade. Same on YouTube, uploading there a ton.
You can find me over at LAFB. Every single Wednesday, you'll catch me with Ryan Dyrud with, like Gabe said, the only true, real call-in show in the USC YouTube space. You could also catch us doing a post-game show live right after games. And also make sure you're going to the website, lafbnetwork.com, to check out articles that we'll have daily as this season gets rolling. Appreciate you guys all being here and checking us out.
And guys, one small programming note before we get out of here. We are going to have an instant reaction up for you on Saturday night. So make sure you're tuning back in to hear our thoughts on the Missouri State game. And yeah, really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for listening, and fight on.